Hello, I'm Eric Madison.
And I'm Mark Schaefer.
Welcome to a moment of virtue.
Oh my goodness, we have a good one today.
Do we?
We're going to talk about Aristotle's definition of true friendship or worthwhile friendship.
All right.
Now, we've talked about Plato a little bit and how he was always concerned with these ideal, far-off, heavenly forms, and then how things on the earth reflected those forms but didn't get there all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Aristotle went the total opposite way of his teacher. In
Really?
fact, we might say he's one of the first true empirical scientists. He wanted to look at the natural world around him and categorize it.
Oh, wow.
We even categorize animals by genus and species in the same way that Aristotle started to do long ago. Yeah. And he has 3 categories for friendship.
Uh-huh.
And he says one of the categories is worthwhile. The other 2, don't bother. In fact,
Really?
the lowest form of animals can have the other 2 forms of friendship. So here are his 3 types.
Okay.
His 3 types are friendships based on utility,
Mm-hmm.
pleasure,
Mm-hmm.
or the good type based on virtue or arete or goodness that you recognize in another person.
Another person.
Okay?
Okay.
So utility or chresimon friendships are basically you're getting something from me, I'm getting something from you. Maybe we're in business together and I provide the marble and you provide the sculpture. And it's not really that we're friends, it's that we have a mutual agreement between us, right?
Okay.
Aristotle says that Herodotus talked about even dumb animals that had a friendship like this when he told the story of the crocodile and the sandpiper, right?
Right.
So the sandpiper and the crocodile have a symbiotic relationship, and Aristotle says that's a great example.
Uh-huh.
But see how even low animals can have that.
Right. Like the little fish that swim next to the sharks and
Yeah. What are
Those
those
guys?
called?
I think they're called pilot fish, but don't quote me on that.
Pilot fish. I'll go with it.
Okay.
And then the other friendship that he says is low is based on hedone or pleasure, and the idea being that you might really just like someone because of what you get to do when you're with them. Maybe every time you come over, I serve ice cream, but when all of a sudden my fridge doesn't have ice cream, it's the pleasure is gone. Or he says romantic relationships where there's not true investment between people, but it's more like a hookup.
Yeah.
Is about pleasure, but not really about recognizing the virtue in one another, which I would argue happens in long-term relationships, right?
Right.
So he says that's not worth having either, because as soon as the pleasure is gone and you enter a bad time where it disappears, the friendship will vanish, right?
Yeah.
So he says the good kind, the kind that's really worth it, is not about a giving of yourself or a taking from someone else. It's about a mutual recognition of honorable qualities in one another.
Oh, wow.
Trust and goodness and courage and bravery and temperance and all the good virtues that we want to cultivate in ourselves, we recognize in another. It's like they pull us forward.
And they pull
Right?
Right.
Yeah, it's almost like we yoke ourselves to another ox and we're in step towards things that matter, right? It's not my image, that's Jesus, actually. Yeah, but in fact, Aristotle, when he defines friend simply, he says, well, what is a friend? And he says, it's a single soul in 2 bodies. That is, you're motivated and care about the same things, right?
Okay.
And he says, so important is this kind of friend that without this kind of friend based on arete or virtue, no one would choose to live even if they had every other good.
Wow.
Yeah, if you had a castle on the hill and cars in the garage and a chef that cooked for you all the time and no one in the world that saw you as virtuous and you saw as virtuous, he says he thinks most people wouldn't find life that exciting or worth living at all.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?